Greetings everyone. Do you see what I see? This is a line in a popular song, which is often sung in December. It's also a line that may be used when someone calls someone over and asks, "Do you see what I see over there?" Let me ask a similar question to you. Do you see what God sees? God may be asking you to see something that He sees. Today, God can see the heavens and the earth. He can see all the suburbs that we live near or in. And He can see all the residents of those suburbs as well. God sees all the injustices in the world. Do you see what God sees? God sees someone who is broken with deep wounds. Do you see what God sees? God may see someone who is deciding whether to kill their baby or to give life to their baby. Do you see what God sees? God sees people hungry on the streets. Do you see what God sees? God sees people being lazy and people who can't be bothered to do anything. Do you see what God sees? It is hard to make assessments if we only see things on face value. A particular person may be begging on the street with ragged clothes, but God sees that that person may be a tourist visa person and who is going to send the money back overseas. There may be a particular person who is begging for money for a train ticket, but God may see that the person may be intending to buy alcohol or drugs with it, or to gamble it away. But at the same time, there may be someone who is on the streets begging, who may have just been kicked out of their house by their mum or their dad or both. And they might be wondering, why did they do that? I have no assets, I've got nothing. God sees that. Do you see what God sees? There is a disconnect between what God sees and what people see. Jesus demonstrated this when He said to His Father while He was dying on the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And that's from Luke chapter 23, verse 34. Jesus asked His Father to forgive them, for they did not know what they were doing. In this example, the Father saw that people were mistreating His Son, but the people on the ground did not realize they were mistreating His Son. Jesus, while He was on the cross, saw people being wicked, but the people on the ground did not appreciate that they were being wicked. Friends, some people who are mistreating you do not see what they are doing. They do not realize they are mistreating you. Are you going to be like Jesus and ask for their forgiveness? Or are you going to mistreat them in return? Two wrongs do not make a right. People are often quoted for their last words. The last words they spoke before they passed away. Last words often inspire people. The first Christian who was killed was a man named Stephen. His last words were, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them." Stephen at the time of saying this was being stoned to death. And when Stephen said this, he actually could see more of what God could see. We read in Acts chapter 7, verses 55 to 56, this was before Stephen was dragged out of the city to be stoned, just before he was. But Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, looked up to heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. "Look," he said, "I see heaven open and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God. Stephen saw heaven open. He saw the glory of God, and he saw Jesus standing at the right hand of God. Notice, Jesus was standing, not sitting. Christians understand that Jesus is seated at the right hand of the Father, but notice in this passage, Jesus was standing, not sitting. I believe Jesus was standing in honour of his saint, ready to welcome him home. Stephen could see more of what God could see. So much so that his last words were spoken to help those who were mistreating him. He wanted those who were stoning him to experience what he experienced, to see what he could see, which was the glory of God. Friends, when we see what God sees, our perspective changes. We realize that holding grudges is being petty. We realize we shouldn't mistreat those who are mistreating us. We realize that those who are mistreating us don't realize they are mistreating us, and we should pray for their forgiveness. Amen.